Hey guys, big day tomorrow. Our mini skid steer is coming in. To be honest, this has been a long time coming. We have done sod work now for 3 years without our own machine. I have rented a machine. The math said to rent, and then finally we hit that tipping point where we're doing enough of the work now where it truly does make sense for us to have our own machine. And to be honest, probably could have pulled the trigger a little bit earlier on this, but I just wanted to be ultra conservative before we went out and took on this amount of equipment. But I wanted to share with you my thoughts on what was that tipping point, why I made the decision from renting to actually owning, and what factored into that. So we rented this equipment for 3 years, and I don't mean like occasionally rented it. I mean like we were renting it, multiple times a month. And I understand some people are like, that's crazy. You should just go ahead and get your own. You got to understand, guys, that I was still testing the water and making sure this is something that we wanted to pursue before I took on a substantial amount of equipment. And next, what it did was it gave me an opportunity to run. I mean, I ran them all. I've ran every piece of equipment substantially. All the mini skids, the ditch witch, the Vermeer. I've ran the Bobcat. I've ran the Dingo. We've recently got a hold of the Kubota SCL 1000. I've put hours on all those, and I've put hours on a lot of different attachments. And by renting for an extended season, it really allowed me to dial in our process, like what works best for us for sod installations. There's some people that prefer the Harley rake. There's some people that prefer the Cultivator. I've seen guys come in with sod cutters and actually cut out the yard and scoop it out with a bucket. And over 3 years, I've tried it all. But by waiting, it allowed me to really hone in on our craft, on what I feel like is the best for us and how we operate on these yards. So in the beginning, whenever we would rent, what I did was I would rent the mini skid and then some type of machine for blending up the yard. And I would do all that a day or two before the sod was scheduled for delivery, just to give us a little bit of wiggle room. Then I would have to return the machine. So then the sod would be delivered, right? And we would have to wheelbarrow it around the yard, or maybe your delivery driver could set the pallets down at a strategic location, which everybody tries to do that. But at some point you're having to walk too far with the sod, or you're starting to bring your lines of sod into the actual pallet itself, and then you're having to work around the pallet. And man, so then it got to where I was having to rent the machine for 2 days. So it was like we'd rented it for 1 day to do the entire lawn prep, and then I would rent it for the second day with forks, just to be able to move, half pallets of sod around the yard. And it helped us tremendously to do that. But by renting the machine for multiple days now, well, I'm no longer renting it for like $320 for everything. Now it's pushing up into $550 every time we're doing a project. And you stack enough of those together, and then you kind of compound what the tax savings would be to actually own the machine, and then just having the machine on hand for all the other projects that we need it for. We hit that tipping point where it's like, you need a machine. So again, I have ran them all, and I will tell you my two favorite out of all of them is the Vermeer and the ditch witch. Both of those for me were the nicest, most user-friendly machines. I feel like they had the best features, and I researched both of those extensively and used both of them extensively. Really, it kind of would have been a toss-up between the ditch witch and the Vermeer, but the truth is there's not a ditch witch dealer close to me, but there is a Vermeer dealership about 30 minutes away. And again, I've always said how important it is to have a relationship with any type of equipment dealer, and unfortunately ditch witch was just out of our area, so we ended up with the Vermeer, the S925TX. And again, I did a lot of research on this machine as compared to maybe going up to the next model, or even up to the 160. Now for me, the 925 checked all the boxes for us, and then to go up to the next size machine, the 1000, we call it the 100 or whatever they call it, the next size up, there was about a $10,000 difference between that and really a whole lot of the specs. They didn't change much between the 925 and then the 1000. Now, if you start pushing up into the Vermeer, the 160 line, well, okay, your lifting capacity is substantially higher, but again, the additional cost of that was just, for me, it was not worth it. The 925, for me, it just had that balance of the performance specs that we needed, as well as being about 10 grand cheaper than the next model up. It is equivalent to the Ditch Witch, the SK 900, and again, we've ran that machine extensively, and I've never felt like, man, I wish this machine had more power. Now, none of these mini skid steers are going to lift up a full pallet of sod, unless you go to the absolute monsters, and even then, they're still going to struggle with getting that sod around the yard. Typically, how we are using these machines to move sod is breaking the sod down into half pallets or third pallets, if it's wet. And really, that is fine, because you can throw that material off so quick and get it exactly where you need to put it on the ground. It's really not that big of a deal. To truly move sod around the yard effectively, I don't mean just like dragging it across the yard or lifting it up like a teensy bit. Like, you need to be in a full-size skid. You really, really do. So again, I go back to the S925. It just had that balance of value for us, and that's why I decided on that machine. Now, the Vermeer sales rep for our area, he is going to be making the delivery for our machine. Unfortunately, all the attachments are not in right yet, but they are going to be giving me some loaners just to kind of get me by until the attachments come in next week. The attachments that I got for the machine is of course a bucket, a cutting bucket. I ended up getting forks because we need to be able to move pallets around our work site. And then I also got a land plane, a land leveler for smoothing out our work area. And then the most expensive attachment that I got was a cultivator type attachment. The Rhododendron is what we ended up going with. That is the sole cultivator that Vermeer gets a hold of. And though I have not personally ran that machine, I've ran the other cultivators, and for us, the cultivator is the way to go. A Harley rake does a great job of grading and blending material and just kind of cutting out highs and lows, but there's a lot of extra material that you have to get out of the lawn and haul off before you can go to work putting down sod or putting down your topsoil. There's just a lot of material that it chews up, and the difference is with the cultivator, there's like hardly no material to take away. So that cultivator, what it does is it flips it and it buries it. So where the Harley rake cuts it all up and cuts it out, the cultivator actually just flips it and buries it about 8 inches down in the soil, and then it just reduces drastically the amount of labor and haul off material. And that is a big deal, guys. That can cut your labor in half by not having to haul off all that material. So again, everybody has their own way of doing it, whether they're using the Harley rake or just cutting it all out with a sod cutter and scooping it up with a bucket. But for us, the cultivator has kind of been what I've settled it on as working best for our process. So I do want to stress the point of being conservative before you do go out and purchase equipment like this. Again, I've always been very conservative here at our business. Whenever I finance things, it's very, very well thought out. And I feel like I've held true to that. I mean, we rented these things for 3 years, and I feel like I have finally at the point where, okay, this really makes sense for us to do this. I want to discourage anybody from just going out and financing $60,000, $70,000 worth of equipment, but by the time you get your attachments and truck and trailer, I guess it's a big investment, man. And you need to really know that you're going to be working this machine before you go and bite off a major amount of debt like that. But again, I've sat down and the math, it just makes sense. And to be honest, I'm about as excited as I could be. This has been a long time coming. I'm ready to get a hold of this machine and absolutely work it like a dog for the next few years. And one more thing, and I've said this before, but it's important enough that I want to say it again. And I really want to hammer this point home for all you guys who are starting in lawn care, or maybe just getting going, or maybe you've been going for a good long while. But here's the point. I want to remind you that Florida Turf Pros was built off of mowing and maintenance. And you do not have to do landscaping and get involved in that to be successful in this industry. Like, you really don't. Like, you can make a really, really good living mowing and maintaining lawns. For us, this is just the next logical transition for our business, because we're coming up on year 8 now in business, and it just, short of us adding more employees, I think we want to go a different direction for increased productivity and profit and stuff. So we're looking at adding, more landscaping and sod stuff to our mowing and maintenance. But I just want to stress the point that Florida Turf Pros, what we built, everything was really built on the mowing. And I just want to encourage you that if you are starting out, you can make a really, really good living. I mean, better than good living, mowing and doing maintenance type work. So do not feel like you have to do everything and have, skid steers and do all the projects and say yes to everything. There will come a point, once you've been in business for a good long time, that you want to start exploring other options. But it is not necessary in the beginning, and you can be very, very successful without going down that path.